tell you, I wish I could put the general in my pocket and take him with me everywhere I go. You know, he is a true patriot. But think about it, you know, I, as a military spouse, I know what it's like to be in a military family. I know what it's like to sacrifice. I know what it was like to send my husband to war and wonder if he was going to make it home. This man, my husband went to Afghanistan once. General Bolduc went 10 times for us. He is a true American hero and patriot. Thank you. God bless you. To go from enlisted to general, I'd say you did pretty good. I think you did okay, but more than that, I've met a lot of generals. They don't act like that. Most generals love to talk down to people. General Bolduc talks right to you, and I've always appreciated that about you. God bless you and Sharon for all that you've given to our country. We appreciate it. So one of the things the general told me when I was, going to start campaigning in New Hampshire, he's like, you got to go to Laconia. You gotta go to Laconia. It's the best place. You gotta go. So now I know why. He shows up in his letter jacket. He sees his coach. He's still trying to impress his coach. That's what it is.
He was hard to impress.
So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and then kind of where we are in our country and where we need to go from here. I was born and raised in a small rural town in South Carolina. We were the only Indian family in that small southern town. We weren't white enough to be white. We weren't black enough to be black. They didn't know who we were, what we were, or why we were there. And I remember when I would get teased on the playground, my mom would always say, your job is not to show them how you're different. Your job is to show them how you're similar. Our country could take my mom's advice right now. And even though the town didn't know why we were there, my parents knew why we were there. Because there was never a day they didn't tell my brothers, my sister, and me how blessed we were to live in America. My mom started a business out of the living room of our home. I started doing the books for the family business when I was 13. It wasn't until I got to college that I realized that was child labor. But I learned the value of $1, and then I went on. I'm not an Ivy Leaguer like the rest of the candidates. I went to a public school. I went to Clemson University. Go Tigers. Yes. Graduated with a degree in accounting. Met my husband my very first weekend at college. We dated for 7 years. We've been married for 26. We have 2 children. And I went and worked in the corporate world. And then I came back home to the family business. And one day I was sitting down telling my mom how hard it was to make $1 and how easy it was for government to take it. My mom said, quit complaining about it, do something about it. I did not know you weren't supposed to run against a 30-year incumbent in a primary. I truly didn't. Ignorance is bliss. And once we realized he was related to half the district, the only option was to win. So I went around that district and I said, you know what, we've got way too many lawyers at the State House. I think they need a really good accountant. And the district took a chance on me. I won and I got to work at the State House. Now in South Carolina, a lot of legislation was passed by voice vote. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. But one day, there was a bill that was read across the desk that would give legislators a pay raise. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, silent. The ayes have it. Yet to this day, you can't find anyone that says they voted themselves a pay raise. We had a Republican House, a Republican Senate, a Republican governor. And I was furious. I went to the Speaker of the House and I said, this is why people don't trust us. And I filed a bill that said anything important enough to be debated on the floor of the House or the Senate is important enough for people to know how their legislators voted. The Speaker said, put the bill away. We don't need to have it. We will decide what the people need to see and what they don't. I remember going home to my husband that night saying, if I can't even get legislative votes on the record, what am I doing here? And he said, then fight. So I went around the state of South Carolina and I said, did you know of all the bills passed in the House, only 8% were on the record? Of all the bills passed in the Senate, only 1% was on the record. So if you didn't know how your House member voted 92% of the time, if you didn't know how your senator voted 99% of the time, how did you know who to vote for when you went to the polls? And the people of South Carolina were shocked. To put this into perspective, my first year in office, I was chairman of the freshman class. My second year, I was majority whip. My third year, I was on a powerful business committee. My fourth year, I was subcommittee chair of banking. The year that I wouldn't put the bill away, they stripped me of everything. I could take the well, no one would hear me speak. I could sponsor a bill, no one would co-sponsor. So I ran for governor. I'm proud to say that one of the first bills we signed into law is now in South Carolina. Everything debated on the floor of the House or the Senate requires a legislative vote on the record. And we took it a step further and we did it on every section of the budget. And I love music, so on the day of the bill signing, I blasted throughout the State House Pat Benatar's "Hit Me With Your Best Shot." We took a double-digit unemployment state that was hurting terribly, and we turned it into an economic powerhouse. By the time I left, we were building planes with Boeing. We were building more BMWs than any place in the world. We brought in Mercedes-Benz. We brought in Volvo. We had 5 international tire companies. And yes, they were calling us the beast of the Southeast, which I loved. And then we got a call to go to the United Nations. And my response was, I don't even know what the United Nations does. I just know everybody hates it. But when you get the call to defend your country, you jump. And I knew when I got to the UN, I wanted those countries to know what we were for and what America was against. I didn't care if they didn't like me, but I wanted them to respect America. And we got to work. We pushed ourselves, we got ourselves out of the Iran deal. We moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. We passed the largest set of sanctions against a country in a generation with North Korea. But the main thing we did, we took the kick me sign off of our backs at the UN. We were respected again. One of the stories at the UN, after we moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, I was furious because we were condemned by the entire world. I put up the first American veto they had had in several years to stop it. And the reason I was mad was America can put our embassy wherever we want. We always put it in the capital of every country. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, so we were acknowledging a truth. But I went to my office after 128 countries condemned us. I went to my office and I said, I want you to put a book together. I want you to list all 193 countries. I want the second column to be the percentage of times they voted with the U.S. and against the U.S. And I want the third column to be how much foreign aid we give them. I took that book and I gave it to President Trump. He lost his mind. He's flipping pages, yelling out countries. And I said, look, I'm not saying that we should give foreign aid based on a percentage vote to the UN, but that should be one of the things we do. Stop giving money and trying to buy friends. Stop paying off enemies. You know, last year we gave $46 billion in foreign aid. Do you know who we gave it to? Pakistan, who tried to harbor terrorists that tried to kill our soldiers. Iraq, that now has Iranian influence that says death to America. Zimbabwe, the most anti-American African country out there. Belarus, who's holding hands with Russia as they invade Ukraine. Communist Cuba, who the United States named as a sponsor of terrorism. We're giving them money. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're giving money to China. It's sickening. So now I'm running for president. I don't need to tell you how bad it is. You don't even need to turn on the news to know how bad it is. You feel it at the grocery store. You know it where your children go to school. We see it every day with our family and friends. We are $31 trillion in debt. We are borrowing money just to make our interest payments. President Biden, his new budget that he just released, increases taxes by $5 trillion. But it's easy for us to blame Biden. But I've always spoken in hard truths, and I'm going to speak to you today with hard truths. Our Republicans did that to us too. You go and you look at that $2.2 trillion COVID spending bill that they passed with no accountability whatsoever. It expanded welfare. We now have 90 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. And did Republicans try and make it right after that? No. What did they do? They doubled down and opened up earmarks for the first time in 10 years when we had banned them. They pushed through 7,000 earmarks in December. Want to know where your taxpayer dollars went? You really don't. $7.5 million on horse racing in Arizona, $30 million for an honors college in Vermont, $10 million for a courthouse in Colorado. That's not how we want our taxpayer money spent. That's not what we send it to DC for. All while 60% of Americans are in credit card debt. 1 in 6 Americans can't pay their utility bill. Yet Social Security is going to go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare is going to go bankrupt in 5. What are we doing? Don't ever let them tell you Republicans and Democrats don't agree on anything, because they love to waste our money. They have no problem doing that. They have no value of a dollar. And I'll tell you, with any congressional member you see, you ask them, what have you done for me lately? Because there's nothing. Then you go and you look at the education situation we have in our country. People want to blame COVID for it. No, we had a problem with education before COVID. Do you know 70% of 8th graders in our country are not proficient in reading? Think about that. 67% of 8th graders in our country are not proficient in math. Now you go and add 2 years of lockdowns and we're in a world of hurt. Yet you've got 90% of American kids still under critical race theory, where if a little girl goes to kindergarten, if she's white, you're telling her she's bad. If she's brown or black, you're telling her she's never going to be good enough and she's always going to be a victim. You've got boys playing in girls' sports. It's the women's issue of our time. Where is everybody? My daughter ran track in high school. I don't even know how I would have that conversation with her. Why are we trying to tell our girls that they have to be in a locker room with a biological boy? And does anybody know who Dylan Mulvaney is? Do you guys know who that is? Understand, that is a guy dressed up like a girl making fun of women. Women don't act like that. Women don't act like that. And you've got companies glorifying them. And then you wonder why our girls are having increased anxiety and depression? What are we teaching them? Then you look at the crime. For the first time, people are scared to let their children ride their bikes down the street. They're worried about getting carjacked going into the restaurant. Illegal immigration. I'm the only candidate that's actually been to the border. And I didn't just pull a Kamala and show up and leave. I went 400 miles down that border. You are not ready for what I saw. You get up in the morning and you go get your coffee and you read the newspaper. You know what these ranchers do? They get up in the morning, they get their coffee, and they see if anybody died crossing the fence. They see how many little kids were left. Mounds of clothes, shoes, paraphernalia. There's areas where women are routinely raped. It's disgusting what those ranchers have to go through, and they have to use their own money to clear it all out. I talked to multiple sheriffs. They said before 7 a.m. they have rounded up illegal immigrants, turned them over to Border Patrol. Border Patrol documents them and releases them out for 2 or 3 years until their court date. When I talked to Border Patrol, I said, tell me, what do you do? You know, what can we know? What can we help you with? He goes, you know what our job is? We're babysitters. They don't let us do our job. 4.8 million illegal immigrants have crossed over into our country. We had enough fentanyl cross the border last year that would kill every single American. The number one cause of death of adults 18 to 49, fentanyl. Don't think for a second China doesn't know what they're doing. They are doing this because they know it's going to make us destruct. And what are we doing about it? Nothing. 70,000 Americans died in 2021 alone. We've lost more Americans than the Iraq, Vietnam, and Afghanistan wars combined. Then you look at our foreign policy situation. Did you ever think we'd look at the sky and see a Chinese spy balloon looking back at us? It's a national embarrassment. You've got Russia, who's invaded Ukraine, trying to take their freedoms away. You've got Iran, who's building a bomb. You've got North Korea testing ballistic missiles. You've got a Russian plane that knocks down the U.S. drone. What'd we do? Nothing. And let me tell you, South Carolina has some beautiful beaches, as you know, but that's not why that Chinese spy balloon went over South Carolina. They went over because we are a military state. Yet China has bought up 400,000 acres of farmland, most recently near Grand Forks Air Force Base, where our most sensitive drone technology is. What are we doing? Think about it. So I've told you a lot of bad. It's a lot of bad. And in all honesty, it's hard for me to find anything good to tell you. But now I'm going to say to you what I said to my South Carolinians when I became governor. No more whining. No more complaining. Now we get to work. How do we do that? With our economy, the first thing we do is you claw back the $500 billion of unspent COVID money. Instead of the 87,000 IRS agents going after middle Americans, you go after the hundreds of billions of dollars in COVID fraud that exist. You go and you make sure if spending is our problem, stop the spending addiction. I had to balance a budget when I was governor. You have to balance a budget in your homes. You have to balance a budget in your businesses. Why is Congress exempt from balancing a budget? We have to have that happen. 15% of our budget's interest. Quit borrowing. Cut up the credit cards. I will veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. And yes, another hard truth. We have to do entitlement reform. But when we do entitlement reform, we're not going to take away from anyone who has been promised. We're not going to take away from anyone who has paid in. My parents, I take care of my parents, they're in their 80s. I don't ever want seniors touched. My kids are in their 20s. They're the ones we're going to go to and say the rules have changed. We're going to go to them and we're going to raise their retirement age up until life expectancy. We're going to, instead of doing cost of living increases, we're going to do it according to inflation so that it's more realistic. We're going to limit benefits on the wealthy and we're going to expand Medicare Advantage, and then we're really going to start to pay down debt and get back under control where we need to be. Education in South Carolina, I knew as governor that a child that couldn't read by 3rd grade was 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So in South Carolina, we held our kids back if they couldn't read by 3rd grade. We put them into reading remediation. We worked with their parents, and we put them in summers because we made sure they were going to have the best shot at the best life. When it comes to all of this nonsense happening in classrooms, parents deserve to know what's being taught in their schools. That should not be kept away from them. We have one job. You can't tell us you know better than us on what our kids need. We deserve to weigh in on what our kids are being taught. And yes, parents deserve to decide what school is best for their kids and let that money follow the child all the time. We will start start building things in America, and we will put vocational classes back in high school so that our kids know how to build those things. I'm not just saying it, we did it in South Carolina. I had apprenticeships for all of our kids because if we were building planes, cars, and tires, I wanted my kids to know how to build them. We'll do that again. And then when it comes to crime, can you please honor this man and thank him for taking care of us? Thank you. God bless you. There's one rule of thumb we always need to remember in America. You take care of those that take care of you. We will have the backs of our law enforcement. We will take the numbers of our criminals. And we will make sure we make examples of them. And we will go to our district attorneys and say, you either prosecute according to the law or we're pulling your funding. That's how we will get law and order back on our streets. And when it comes to illegal immigration, day one, when I was governor, I passed one of the toughest illegal immigration laws in the country. We did a mandatory E-Verify program that said no business could hire anyone without proving that they were here legally. We will do that across this country. We will make sure we fire the 87,000 IRS agents and put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground. We will let Border Patrol do their job, but we will also defund sanctuary cities. We will stop giving the hundreds of billions of dollars of handouts to illegal immigrants. That's not their money to be receiving. We will stop that as well. We will make sure we go back to remain in Mexico because guess what? Nobody wants to remain in Mexico. So we will make sure we do that. We will keep Title 42. And instead of catch and release, we will start catch and deport. Yeah. That is how we will end illegal immigration. When it comes to our foreign policy, countries will know what we expect of them. We will not be reactionary, and we will show them that we are strong. The two things that always bothered Russia and China when I was at the United Nations, they never wanted us to have a strong military, and they never wanted us to be energy independent. We will do both. Strong militaries don't start wars. Strong militaries prevent wars. Right. We will make sure we have the best military there is. And part of having a strong military is making sure you have the backs of your veterans. Never should a veteran want or need for anything. They gave the ultimate price. We owe them that. In the recent budget, they wanted to cut the benefits of veterans. Why? Why? They were willing to shed blood for us. If there's anything we do right, take care of our veterans, from mental health to their retirement to their benefits. They should never have to worry about anything. We will make sure we're energy independent. We won't be going hat in hand to Saudi Arabia. We won't be going getting dirty oil from Venezuela. We'll work with our producers so that we never have to want from any other country when it comes to our energy needs. And then we will make sure we will stop lobbyists, foreign lobbyists in our country. That's what embassies are for. We are not going to allow Americans to lobby for foreign countries. If an ambassador wants something, an ambassador can ask for it, but no more lobbying of Congress of foreign entities. And then finally, the last thing that we're going to do, we will stop giving money to countries that hate America. So we got the solutions. We can do this. But the one thing we have to focus on above all of those things is we've got to stop the national self-loathing that's happening in this country. The idea that they're saying America's bad or rotten or racist. I was elected the first female minority governor in history. America's not racist. America's blessed. We need our kids to know to love America. We need our kids saying the Pledge of Allegiance every day in school. Everybody needs to know how great we have it. My husband would always say, I wish every American would go spend one day in Afghanistan because they'd find out our homeless live in luxury compared to the way we live. We need to understand that. Do you remember when you were growing up, how simple life was? How easy it felt? It was about faith, family, and country. Your parents raised you to be responsible individuals. You went to school and you learned what you needed to be successful and take care of yourself. You went to church, and that's where you got your faith and your conscience. Don't you want that again? We could have that again. We can have that. You shouldn't think that you can. But we have to understand a few things. First, we have to understand Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That's nothing to be proud of. We should always want to win the majority of Americans. We should always understand this is a story of addition. Our solutions are the right ones. We focus on lifting up everybody, not a select few. But you have to act like it. You have to act like you want people to be with us. Secondly, if you really want to make a difference, if you really want to save our country, it's going to take a whole lot of courage. Courage for me to run, and courage for every one of you to know, don't complain about what you get in a general election if you don't play in this primary. Because that's what it comes down to. You have to want it. You have to be willing to fight for it. Somebody asked me why I was doing this. And I said, my parents came here 50 years ago to an America that was strong and proud and full of opportunities. I want to show them we can be that again. I want them to know they made the right decision. I'm doing this for my husband and his military brothers and sisters. They need to know their sacrifice mattered, that we do care about our freedoms, that we do love our country. I'm doing this for my daughter who just got married, and I see how hard it was for them to buy a home. And now after I raised her to have good credit, now they're going to punish her for that too. I'm doing this for my son who's a junior in college, and I see him writing papers of things he doesn't believe in to get an A. That's not us. That's not America. Do you know for the first time in history, 78% of Americans don't think their kids are going to have as good of a life as they did? That goes against everything we believe in. That goes against everything America's about. We've got a country to save, and I know we can do it. If you join me in this, I promise you, our best days are to come. God bless you. Thank you very, very much.